Welcome back to Exit Point. It's been a while, but I'm glad we're back and we've got a very special interview to open up with. We're welcoming a jumper who's no longer with us back to the show, the one and only Kate Compton. And before we get into it, I'd like to say that Compton was a lot of things to a lot of people. And the way she played the game, none of those things, acquaintance, teammate, partner, soulmate, friend, colleague, family, or inspiration, are easy to lose this early in the game. I didn't know her well, but everything I did know about her, I absolutely loved. She was a warrior and a champion, and what's even more impressive is that she was hilarious and cool and a punk brat while she was slaying demons. It was impossible to spend any length of time with her and not respect her game. This was a figuratively heavy lift because this interview was conducted approximately 1 month before she lost her life while wingsuit base jumping. But after consulting with her family and loved ones, we decided that hearing her voice one more time was a must. We at Exit Point were attempting to track her career as she progressed, and the interview that follows was aimed at covering her transition from up-and-coming amateur to true professional. You can wind back the clocks and hear her first interview with us on episode 33. Suffice it to say that we were planning on getting many more check-ins with her, and if we had known this was going to be our last conversation with her, we certainly would have covered some very different ground. In light of that fact, we have heavily edited this episode. So for those of you who thought you'd never get another, and those of you who never got the opportunity to, here's one more conversation with the one and only Katelyn, straight out of Compton. We hope you get something out of hearing what level she was on shortly before we never heard from her again. What are your current goals in base jumping?
Pretty much just to do it as much as possible, to be as good at it as I can.
And I gather that something is keeping you from doing it as much as possible right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a normal job. It's really getting in the way of that. Yeah, I mean, it's helping it, but also hindering at the same time.
Though it has been supporting your efforts up to now.
Yeah, thus far it has allowed me to do everything I've done.
What have you been doing as an occupation?
I work in rope access, and I work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I make enough money to blow it all on super awesome stuff on my time off. But it means that every 2 weeks I go 2 weeks without doing the thing.
And so you would like for base jumping to be filling basically all of your time?
I would say flying. Most of my time, yeah. Or other activities that are in support of it.
And so now you're looking for people to sponsor you monetarily.
Yeah. Yeah, up till now I've had some sponsors that help me out with gear, which has been awesome, really helpful. But really, if I want to jump all the time and progress to where I want to, I need to do it more often. And to do it more often, I'm going to need the money to come from somewhere.
Fill us in. What are your current sponsors and what were they like to get?
Right now, the companies that support me are Manufacturer Apparel, Squirrel, Hilks Eyewear, LB Altimeters, and UPT.
Were those hard sponsors to accrue? And how did you accrue them?
I would say they all took a genuine effort. I wrote to each of them. I had a letter that was written specifically for them. And this all happened over the span of 3 years, all those sponsors. And they seemed open to hearing me talk about what I've done so far, what I'm planning for the future, and more importantly, how what I'm doing will be beneficial for them.
How did you get your first sponsor and who was that?
My first one was Manufacturer Apparel. I met the owners, Rob and Shelley, when I lived in Australia, and they were at the 2020 Aussie Nationals that I competed at. And I heard from a little birdie that they were audibly impressed with my scores during the competition. And so I thought, oh my God, I wonder if I hit them up, if maybe they'd be interested, you know? So I really took the time and I wrote out a thoughtful letter to them. And it was a process of a few months for that to really take hold. It was a conversation that went back and forth and making sure that it was the right fit.
Yeah, what does that look like? I mean, we're talking to a lot of people that want to eventually get sponsored. And I think the first step is to get somebody within your industry to support you. What was that conversation like? What was the negotiation like?
Yeah, when it comes to sponsors within the sport of skydiving or base jumping, what it seems that most of them are looking for is to have good ambassadors. And that might look slightly different to each of those sponsors. It turns out that you don't have to be the best, right? But being kind and helpful to people upcoming, that seems to be important to manufacturers.
So how did they get to know that about you? I mean, they started out with just a couple of numbers to represent you. Was there some exchange along the way that, allowed them to get to know you as a person?
Yeah. The first approach has been via email with a letter, a portfolio, some pictures. Hey, this is what I'm up to. And that's the hard part, selling yourself and believing in yourself and what you're doing legitimately. Because you're like, okay, well, selling myself, like, what does that look like? What does that even mean? But really, it is about believing in what you're doing and believing that what you're doing can in some way benefit their company, because it is a business decision. So you have to keep that in mind. And that's kind of the most important thing. And recommendations that have been given to me is that you need to let them know how supporting you is going to support them.
So in this particular case, like, how does you wearing manufacturer apparel help them? Or what was the pitch like for this first sponsor?
I am one of very few wingsuit coaches in Canada, even fewer in Western Canada, and their market is mostly in Australia. So right there, I have reach with people who are new to the sport or new to wingsuiting. I'm making their brand more visible in their target audience, their target market, and in a country that they so far don't have many or much business in.
Gotcha. So like right there, you're understanding what their marketing strategy is, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah. I mean, did you have some different experiences when you first started out approaching sponsors?
No, actually, I got my first sponsor exactly the same way that you did, by meeting them in person. They were Evolve Sports, and they came up in the climbing gym that I started working for. And eventually, when I became good enough at what I was doing to give them some benefit, I said like, hey, like, can we work something out where like I can grab some shoes from you and I will provide like the instruction and representation to a group that you guys are trying to reach? And it was like, oh, of course. And so like that was my first step into that game, was to get free shoes, which I was having trouble, affording.
Yeah, you're a climbing bum, right?
Right, I'm a climbing bum. Yeah. And they see me like with my holdout shoes, teaching classes and guiding people. And they're like, that's actually representing our brand poorly. Like, we want you to have shoes.
Yeah, please, for the love of God, could you just, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sick. So like, if I sing all of your praises, which I do know how to do because I truly do believe in your company. Like, I love Evolve.
Yeah.
Will you give me free shoes? And they're like, sweet, let's write up a contract. So that's how I got started as well.
Yeah. And that what you just said, that's a really big thing. And some advice that I got early on was to seek out brands that you like and that you use.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to be disingenuous. And the relationship is always going to be strained. It's not going to be good for you or them. And ultimately, it'll just end up being a waste of time.
So is that where you're drawing the line between being a sponsored athlete and being a quote unquote sellout?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the parameters.
Okay.
Like I don't want to spend my time doing that work.
Yeah.
For something that I don't like and don't use.
Yeah, it's soul crushing. If you end up in a sponsorship relationship or any relationship where you just really don't agree with the product or the company or the person that you're dealing with, and you're press ganged into continuing to do something that you have passion for, just to fulfill the obligation.
Yeah, like that's what sucks the life out of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you get that first sponsorship, were the next ones easier or were they equally difficult?
I think that it maybe helped me in some way to have a sponsor. So I could say, hey, there's another company that thinks this is kind of cool. Check it out. But I would say I put as much or similar effort into those ones because they were ones that were important to me to have.
I mean, that's a fair amount of sponsors that you listed. Do you have to do individual work for all of them?
Most of my obligations are fulfilled in what I'm already doing, which is why it works. I suppose it depends on what the requirements are.
Okay.
Each company has a different set of requirements. Some of the companies that support me it's pretty broad. It's just like, hey, go out there and be cool to people, be helpful, help them choose our gear. And that's easy to do. I'm already doing that. Some of them have more strict guidelines of they want certain things from me per month in terms of social media engagement. As someone that's forgetful, that's sometimes easy to bypass.
Yeah.
But that's really where stuff is going with a lot of companies, is having this social media engagement obligation. And I can see how that would easily get overwhelming and really out of hand. If you had multiple sponsors that were requiring X amount of posts, stories, whatever, with exclusive tagging every month, that's a whole job by itself and for no monetary return to you. And that's a lot of stress.
That's where I want to see where you're dividing the line here, because to me, that actually is not a sponsored athlete. If you are doing marketing work for that company and you're providing the platform from which that marketing is being pushed out into the world,
it's a job.
That's a job. Yeah. You've essentially become a marketing platform and not a sponsored athlete. And that's where we see a lot of people kind of dipping into a different world entirely, where their actions are being driven by the marketing flow of the certain company. So back to the question at hand, more simply put, what does it mean to you to be a sponsored athlete?
What it means to me is that there are companies and brands that are willing to support me in a way that actually...
It's tough. I can see that it's
so
tough.
Yeah, it's I'm like,
yeah. And don't feel bad about that, because I think that the term sponsored athlete has been muddied so much over the last several years.
You could just hit up any company and say, hey, check out the stuff I do, give me some free shit, and they give you free shit and cool. Does that really mean you're sponsored? I don't know. I guess when I think of someone that's a sponsored athlete, they have reached a certain level of skill and professionalism.
Yeah.
And that there are companies that support them through that, in a legitimate way.
Right. So, I mean, that's even a little quixotic too.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's important for us to kind of get into this, drill down on this one, because it has been so misunderstood. I agree with you. If somebody's just giving me a t-shirt, I'm not a sponsored athlete, right? Because me wearing their brand doesn't actually support me doing anything.
Yeah.
Now, if they're giving me discounts on products and stuff that will eventually lead to me being able to accomplish my goals in a more meaningful way, then now I'm actually getting support in some way. If now I dip into a different category where they're obligating me to create media specifically for their company, now I'm in a totally different realm. Now I'm an employee, maybe I'm an actor, perhaps I'm a marketer, but that's not exactly the relationship or role of a sponsored athlete.
Yeah. And I think even one of the ways I've put it in letters is that in order for me to be the type of representative for your company that I want to be at a certain skill level.
Yeah.
And for me to be at that certain skill level, it means I need to do it more. And for me to do it more, I need to have the time and the money to do it.
Right. So try this on for size. A company looks at you and they say, wow, we really like what you're doing. Either you're pushing performance in a way that we would love to see continue, or you are representing the sport amongst your cohort and we love that, or you're, sending a message to the rest of the world that we think is in alignment with our brand. And you're like, great, I'm having trouble continuing to do that because these things are expensive.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, we'll help you with that. And then you ask them back well, what do you need me to do? And their response is really the cornerstone of whether you are a sponsored athlete or an employee or some other version of that.
Yeah. And I think that all of those three things that you just sort of touched on all exist within the current sponsors that I have.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Like, I'm also sponsored by Squirrel. When they gave you that deal, what did they say as that answer? Like when you're like, oh, what do you need from me? What did they say?
They want me to do what I'm doing and be a positive influence in the community.
That's exactly what they said to me. Yeah, they're like, look, what you need to do is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And I'm like, that is awesome.
Right.
And that just like solidifies the fact that this is a relationship that I really want to have.
Right. And so that to me is a sponsored athlete, because what they are doing is supporting us doing exactly what we have already grown accustomed to doing.
Yeah.
So we've got at least some line on what it is to be a sponsored athlete. What did you think about sponsored athletes before you became one?
I talk so much shit about sponsored athletes. I mean, I talk shit about a lot of stuff pretty often, but that was like at the top of the list. Yeah, just the crew that I started jumping with was really not into that whole scene for sure. And I sort of latched onto the same mentality. And it's just too easy, right? Like just the classic like ski film interview, crossed right over to base jumping. Yeah, and I'm just like out here doing the thing, you know? You know, I think I even heard someone once say in an interview that base jumping was a natural progression from snowboarding.
Oh, God, now I got to think back and
right, like, was it you?
That.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, anyone that's listening, if that's you, I mean, sorry, not sorry, but yeah, we made fun of that one quite a bit. Yeah, it's so easy to take the piss on that. And it all just sort of shifted when I started competing. And then people that had nothing to do with jumping started asking me, oh, do you have sponsors? Like in a very innocent way, and in a way that they just sort of expected that I would say yes.
Okay.
Like, oh, you do this cool thing. Like, of course you would have some sponsors.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, shit, maybe someone will. Maybe I could get help. Maybe I don't have to work my ass off for all the money for training, you know?
So at that point, did you start kind of recharacterizing the sponsored athlete in your head? Did you have less beef with those people?
It was a huge perspective shift because I started feeling like, well, I'm just trying to do the thing I want to do. And probably so are those people. And like taking the opportunities as they come or making the opportunities happen for themselves. And actually, that's fucking awesome. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy.
So what was your beef before, like with a sponsored athlete?
Oh, like, you know, the like sellout obviously is like one of the main adjectives you use there for sure.
Okay, so like the Ricky Bobby type who's got like Fig Newtons across his windshield. Like, I don't care, man. I sold that space, you know?
Yeah, like just doing whatever for whatever.
For whatever. If they're paying me, it's for me.
Yeah. And also letting it interfere with the activity. I have seen this firsthand quite a bit where it sort of detracts from the experience. I just thought like, man, I never want to be a part of that. What I'm doing actually is like a really personal thing.
Okay. Can you give me an example of that?
Like hiking with a film crew, you know, which I mean, and this is the tricky thing, right? It's because like we're all like outdoor people and we love watching sick films.
Yeah.
But you don't see the other side of that, which is you have to go out with the film crew to get the sick footage to make the film. And I actually, just this past summer, I had the opportunity to pardon this shit myself. No, these filmmakers wanted to do this short little film kind of regarding the injury that happened. And I had to tie my shoe like 10 times. For some reason, they love that shot. They love the shoe tying shot and like putting the helmet in the bag. And then when you do it 10 times, it feels super unnatural. And then I just thought back to all those times that I talk shit about people hiking with a film crew, you know? And yeah, it's good to be challenged in your perspectives, I think, in that way. But because there is that element of like taking away from the experience, but then also you're gaining a new one.
Totally.
At the same time. It's a whole experience in and of itself. And you're creating art.
Yeah.
That's what filmmaking is. It's an art form. And that's part of the process.
There is a balance. And you pointed out like kind of the key point for me is when the capturing of the performance cannibalizes the performance itself versus trying to just do the thing a little more naturally, right?
Yeah.
It starts to
like
look
you can't
funny.
be natural if you do it 10 times in a row.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you're like, okay, well, what are we really been doing here? You know?
And like, you've had some experience with the filmmaking portion of things.
Yeah, totally. And it's a hard world to balance. You know, they have their goals and they have their desires, and it's really tough. I've worked with some really awesome film crews, like the Camp 4 people, amazing filmmakers, and they would not change our directive or our passion or our plans at all to fit what they were trying to shoot. They're like, look, you do you, we will shoot around you. If we don't get what we need, we'll continue shooting on another day, on another time, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
You know? But we are not going to try and subvert what you are already trying to do, because it just wouldn't be as good, you know, at the end of the day.
And actually, you and I spoke when this was happening, this filming that I did in Squamish, because I did an interview that I wasn't really stoked about. You know, it didn't feel very natural or genuine. And I talked to you about it. And you said, you know, it's within your power to have it go the way you want it to go. And you need to talk to them and find out, like, what are their goals with it? What do they want to portray? And does it line up with what you want to portray about yourself?
Totally. Yeah. I've had that conversation and passed on projects too. One of them was, it was a major network production. We were approached to do, and I kid you not, a project called The Idiots. Yeah. And they were producing this like series about all these extreme idiots. And they're like, okay, so here's what it's going to be like. You guys are insane, right? Okay. So like, you're going to do insane stuff. And then we're going to be like narrating over the top, like of like how crazy and stupid what you're doing is. I'm just like, wow.
Absolutely not. But thank you for asking.
Yeah. You're probably going to find somebody. It's not going to be me. So how do you avoid that?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because like, it's really how you feel about what you're doing and what it means to you. And that's not to say like there's any right or wrong way or good or bad way to feel about it. It just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you really just take the time to keep checking in with yourself about what you want and why you want it, a lot of that could be avoided. A lot of the bad shit. But then I'm not at the top level. Who knows if I ever will be? But I think there's maybe some aspect of that where you just get blinded by it all. Like you're so in it that you can't see out of it or remember what it was like before it.
And that's why it's really interesting for me to have this conversation with you now, because you're at a point where you have an incredible amount of passion for the sport and you are being supported by companies that are not asking very much of you, if anything. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember being really happy at that point in my career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like super happy. And I remember like thinking to myself, like, okay, I've struck the balance here. Like I used to clown on pros all the fucking time. I'm like, you guys are lame. It's about doing it because you love it, man.
Yeah.
Like not because you're getting paid for it. That's lame.
Yeah.
And then I had the same realization that you did. So I'm really interested to see like, how you anticipate continuing to drive your motivations and continue having the energy that you have for all these things without getting burnt out.
Yeah, I think as I go along this path, I'm going to have to start asking myself some harder questions about it. As you just pointed out, I'm at like a cool spot right now where I'm just kind of doing my thing, doing me. I'm trying to look for bigger sponsors that will help me out financially. And I think that's where that stuff's going to start. Yeah. There's going to be more obligations. There's going to be more admin bullshit to take care of. You know, it's like not my strong suit. So that's going to be a challenge.
Totally. But that's like one of the main skill sets that you have to have as a professional athlete.
Yeah. Because that's the deal. That's
like you have to be the best emailer ever.
Yeah. So like that is a challenge for me already at this stage.
Right.
So I'm going to have to get my shit together.
And I think that eludes a lot of people in our community who like expect that just because they are really excellent at something that like all of a sudden they should be at the top of everybody's sponsor list.
Yeah.
Even though like they don't return an email within a calendar week. And you're like, well, I mean, yeah, we all know that you're cool. And like, we talk to you every day because you're here, but like these companies they don't know who you are, bro.
Yeah. There's lots of pieces to that puzzle. Using those grade 12 skills I've been trying to put together a portfolio.
Yeah, you got like an awesome pitch deck.
I mean, that one I can recite to you now.
No, I'm just asking if you have one, because that was also something that we used to clown on, like before I was a sponsored athlete, looking at people's pitch decks and being like, bro, this is so fucking self-aggrandizing.
Yeah. It's a fine line that, like, you want to speak confidently about what you know and believe about yourself, but without being a total wanker about it, right?
I mean, it's totally tough, like, because if I were to give you my pitch deck, you would clown on me. You'd be like, Matt, this is fucking stupid, But, you're not the audience.
Yeah, it's because we know intimately what is involved in our activity, right? And so it sounds totally different to someone outside of the community, dude. Yeah. And it's so much easier to like stomp on other people's dreams and just like give them an ounce of support, like.
Yeah, the hater rate is real.
Why is that, right? And I mean, now that I'm on the other side of it, I don't want to be that person for sure.
So has it been tough for you to crest that hill and start being a little more self-promoting?
I'm at the point now that I feel more comfortable doing it. Even just doing little things like writing bios if I'm organizing at events and they need a little blurb about me. Doing little things like that has gotten me more used to it. And I'm finding ways that I can still sound like myself, but in a professional way.
When you write your bios, do you write them in the first person or third person? Yeah.
If I'm writing it for organizing for an event, I write it in the third person. But on my bio in my portfolio, I write it in first person because I'm presenting me from my own perspective. Hi, I'm Katelyn. This is what I do.
Nice.
Yeah. But for events, it's like you're pretending that the event organizer had the time and or gave a shit enough to write something about you, right?
Do you think that there is a cultural stigma surrounding being paid to base jump?
Oh, there is a lot of stigma because like, well, yeah, who doesn't want to be a sponsored athlete? But it's like, okay, who's willing to do the fucking work?
So you don't resent people that are being paid to jump?
No, but I can see it has its downsides.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you feel like you would be giving up anything personally if you were to start being a paid athlete?
I want to believe that how I feel about jumping now, I'll always feel that way and that my motivation won't change. But who knows? I could be wrong. I could let it get to my head. But that's where the slippery slope comes in.
Exactly. Do you know what the over-justification principle is?
It's a principle that describes the relationship between motivation and reward.
Precisely. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, it's a psychological theory stating that once you give somebody a reward outside of their intrinsic reward, they will start to lose intrinsic motivation. And that is something that sponsored athletes come up against all the time, especially when they're starting to get paid to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So are you building any safeguards for yourself to avoid it?
Being aware of it is a big thing. And like, who knows if I'm going to fall victim? I really hope not. I really feel like I can keep a good check on myself, but maybe that won't be the case, You can't know for sure ever about anything.
You remarked in another interview or conversation that we were having that like everybody has their price.
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, is true. I do this little test with people sometimes. You just come up with like any random weird, like, how much would it cost for you to do this, XYZ weird thing. But on a real level, it's like so hard to answer those types of questions because I'm not at a stage yet where I have to really like answer them in a serious way. Probably for like $10,000, I do some weird exits. I mean, who knows?
See, now that's important too.
That's really the line of questioning there is
right.
Like, what would you do within the sport? What kinds of things would you push yourself towards?
Yeah, I mean,
for the monetary gain. I mean, how have you seen all this change over the course of your experience with being like in the sport and then also being sponsored?
The thing that I think is the toughest to reconcile was the feeling that it was necessary to stay relevant.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's at first you start out and you just go out because you love it, you know, and you're getting so much stuff that it's like incomprehensible to you that you would ever see a day where you wouldn't have more than enough to give to any sponsor that could possibly want more media.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the flip side of the other side of that coin is you want to continue driving your own, you know, progression because it is a better story for every sponsor that you know, gain. And so like initially you have certain goals and then you reach them because people have supported you. And then you like run out of those things and you're like, all right, well, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, I got to push into even more extreme realms just to top myself from last year. How do I top that? How do I top this? How do I keep going?
You know, I've thought about that a bit when it comes to competition, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to be attending my second World Championships. My first World Championships, I didn't perform as well as I wanted to, as I really hoped that I would. What I was I didn't perform at the level that I was training at. And I mean, it was a great great experience. And it made me really fired up to keep going with it. But I have started to wonder what happens if I never finish at the level that I want to. Like, what happens if I never get the scores during competition that I want to? What happens if I don't make top 10, top 5? What happens if I never, ever see a world medal? At what point am I going to decide that I'm going to not do competition? And what if I'm not doing competition? Am I going to still be relevant to sponsors?
Yeah.
You know? Like, when you brought up the relevance word, it's like, how much is that going to play into it? Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite sponsored athletes in history is this guy named Chad Muska. He was a skater back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s too, but he never competed. He didn't even really show up on any mainstream media either, but he had mainstream sponsors because he was such a well-known street skater.
Yeah.
So he's like in all these underground videos that are on VHS and super well known in like small communities and had big name sponsors, but he doesn't have a video game. He's definitely not like in the same rooms as Tony Hawk, but seriously, an excellent sponsored athlete. And his personal narrative just took him in a different direction. So do you have to continue competing?
No. And I mean, I love the competition because it pushes me towards something that's a little unnatural for me. Like, I'm a pretty disjointed, disorganized human being, you know, but I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I like that it brings me to a place of focus. And it really gives me some very solid goals to work towards in my flying. And the biggest benefit and the biggest reason why I do competition is for my wingsuit base jumping, because that's where my heart is.
Perfect. So, okay. What does succeeding at being a sponsored athlete look like?
The biggest thing in my mind of what I want is just to be able to fly as much as I want. So even if it means at some point I don't have any sponsors, whatever. To me, that's not the marker of success, but I view it as a way to help me get to where I want to go.
But if where you want to go is simply unlimited flying, then how are you going to pick up the pieces on the rest of your life? Like your job currently gives you, health coverage, it gives you insurance, it gives you some safeguards, and unlimited flying gives you none of that.
Well, I'm not ready to completely cut my ties with my job. And it's very important to me that I do this in a thoughtful, deliberate way. And I'm going to always keep rope access in my back pocket. I don't want to ever give up those things that you mentioned, that help with the rest of life. In order to be committed to it, it requires other supportive pieces. And one of them is making sure that I'm never financially fucked. But I've had a conversation recently with some friends about the eggs in the basket. If all I'm focused on is the flying, like, where does that leave everything else in line? But like, my basket's not broken yet, and I don't need another basket. And I'm quite happy to use the one I have to put up. I'm going to put all the eggs in that basket until I can't. What's the point in having another basket? I don't fucking need it right now. And maybe that is like super irresponsible and no forethought, but those are my terms, the way that I want to live my life, right? So Like, I'm going to be doing my thing flying regardless whoever is in my corner or not. But if you want to be in my corner, that's sick, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be in your corner too.
So speaking of people in your corner, have you gotten any advice from jumpers around you, people that have gone down this road? Have you been seeking out mentorship? And if so, with whom?
Yeah. I mean, that's a cool thing about our community, isn't it? Everyone has friends that are sponsored. Like, it's not like basketball or skateboarding or whatever. Well, you're never going to meet your heroes. They'll be at the drop zone, chilling out with you, you know, and you can pick their brains. Some people are cool. Some people like to gatekeep. I'm lucky enough to have some close friends that have a lot of experience with this, very relevant experience, that are happy to share what they know and happy to support me. And they've given me amazing information and guidance.
Can you give us a couple of pieces that you've taken to heart? And also, I'd love to hear some pieces that fit into the category of gatekeeping.
I'll start with gatekeeping, actually. One, that it's like a pipe dream. It's never going to happen.
And you've heard this from people that have actually made it happen?
Yeah.
How do they justify that statement?
It's too hard. They got lucky. That kind of stuff doesn't really happen. Along those kinds of lines, right?
I mean, okay, let me agree somewhat here. I will say that all success is part luck.
Yes.
Absolutely. But you do have to put yourself in position where you can get that luck.
Yeah. But in some way, everything up to that point was a preparation.
Exactly.
You know, like, you have to be ready to accept opportunities when they present themselves to you.
Any other gatekeeping statements that you've heard? Okay. Let's move on to solid advice.
Yeah, I mean, lots of it's pretty cheesy, honestly. Like, be yourself, right? But it's true.
Yeah.
Be creative. Like, broaden the horizon there with people or companies or brands that you want to approach. Like, I just sent an email to the Bank of Montreal. I might never ever hear back from them. They even like say that in their automated response. But that's another thing that I heard a lot from people, is that you have to try a lot. And you might not get responses from a lot of people, or it might not be the response that you want.
Back to a couple of questions about where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found somebody to mentor you through this process?
Yeah, I have. I would say there's two main players in that, two people that I seek advice from pretty often.
Who are they? How'd you find them?
One of them, Jeff Weatherall, one of my best friends, and Amber Forte. She's been super supportive of me through my recovery and in this journey as well.
And how did you approach that relationship with them? You know, how did you get them on your team, so to speak?
Jeff was a pro wakeboarder for a long time, big time pro wakeboarder, and he has so much experience with everything from doing interviews to gaining sponsors and how to navigate those waters. That one was really easy, you know, like, hey, Jeff, I'm interested in kind of going down this path. He was super happy to help me straight off the bat. Amber and I actually have talked online quite a bit. We only just met each other in person a few months ago for the first time, but we've talked over the last few years through her recovery and through mine. And that one was pretty easy to approach as well. I just let her know that I was thinking about this, and she's been very open, answering my questions, very supportive. Yeah.
Nice. It's great to hear. I feel like it's hard to find people that are sponsored athletes that are willing to help the next generation come up. Oftentimes, like, it seems like
a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And maybe I chose those people specifically because I knew them well enough to know that they genuinely care about me and want to support me, because I feel that from people a lot. It's like, once you're there, it's like there's no more room on the top of the pedestal for anybody else.
Yeah, and I think it's just short-sighted thinking. I think the more people end up being sponsored and the more they develop these relationships, the more will be available for everybody. The more people that actually break through that barrier, the bigger the pie actually gets.
And the more people that do that, the more you inspire other people to be that way. Like, Amber said that to me. She said there was someone that believed in me early on, And just the only reason that he helped me is because he believed in me and he wanted to see me succeed. And I want to do that for somebody else. And I want to be that person for other people, you know? Like if someone comes to me with their dreams, I don't want to crush them in front of their face, you know? Like I want them to feel like someone believes in them.
Yeah. High tide raises all boats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you don't get very far as trying to stand on people's heads.
And I think there's just too much of that, unfortunately, in our community when it comes to this kind of thing. And I think we've started to have a bit of a shift. I can feel it.
So what's next for you?
I've got the World Championships coming up, and it's going to require a lot of training. So.
And how's your training going? The last time we talked to you on the show, you were just coming off of an injury, and you were heavily into physical therapy. How's it going?
Yeah, still heavy into that, heavier. Yeah, really, really getting back to flying shape and kind of with a renewed sense of direction.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say I mean, I don't recommend getting injured to anybody, but if I'm going to have to pull anything out of that shit pile, it would be that it's very clear to me what I want.
And what do you want?
Fly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, more power to you. I hope that you accomplish these dreams. We're here for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for joining us on The Exit Point. If you have anything to say about what you've just heard, feel free to reach out. Closing out this show is Jeff Weatherall, Compton's mentor and friend, with a few of his thoughts about what happened, why it happened, and who Compton is. Until next time, all the best and nothing less than success to all the base jumpers out there.
I want to thank Matt and the Exit Point podcast for inviting me to close out this episode for my best friend, Katelyn Compton Escott. Compton's last flight was a committing wingsuit terrain line where she needed to clear a ridge, and she didn't. I think a lot of factors went into this, and her personality, just like mine, is we're always trying to squeeze the juice out of life. She had just done a big trip to Australia to see me. She just headed back to Moab and did a road trip from Moab up to Squamish with her boyfriend Nick, and she was super excited to be there. But in the back of her mind, I think she knew that there was this impending knee surgery coming up. And all of these things are factors. I think the long travel, the excitement to be home with your boyfriend, but also the negative, like, oh, I'm going to have to go through the surgery and be off for a long time. It's something to be said. Lots of people have gone to do, one more jump, or, one more trip before a knee surgery. I've done it myself, and maybe that's not the right frame of mind that we need to be in when we need to be acting at 100% of our capacity to make sure we survive. When I first listened to this interview, I felt proud of her effort, proud of her thought process, proud of her sheer goal-driven determination to be unapologetically herself and to chase her dreams. I know from many deep conversations we had over the years that she would be so bummed to no longer be with us. And selfishly, I'll admit that's a part of why I felt so much pain, like so many of her friends and family have since she left this earthly journey. But I do know this. She loved air sports. She loved flying. And she loved the people and the adventures that came with being a part of a global community of like-minded misfits like us. She wanted to see the sport progress. She wanted to be a positive force. She wanted to support women in air sports. We often spoke about what it would look like to be a leader in this art form. The ripple effect is real. The idea of being the person you wish you could have found when you first discovered base jumping originally came from none other than Jimmy Pouchart, and Compton embraced it wholeheartedly. The best way we can honor her is to remember her with a smile, Be unapologetically yourself. Love real hard and be the person you wish you could have found when you were a newbie. I consider myself the lucky one. I'm lucky to have known her, lucky to have shared so much awesome time and adventures together, and lucky to have been loved by her.